Good morning, everybody. It's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon, and here we are with our weekly live Q&A. And I'm here to answer questions that you might have and to share some fun happenings that are going on right now in the natural world. And as usual, if you can see me and hear me, please send a comment. I've got my phone going, so I should be able to see the comments on my phone. Um, and I'm happy to answer any questions that we can. It's an exciting time of year right now because it's fall migration for birds and for monarch butterflies and a few other creatures like dragonflies. So there's lots happening and lots to talk about. And I had a very exciting event that I got to witness the other night in nighthawk migration. So common nighthawks migrate in a short window of time. Sometimes you can get very big flights. They migrate in the evening from around 5:30 to 7:30. And I was watching in Concord with a group of people. There's a Nighthawk Watch in downtown Concord that's coordinated by Zeke Cornell. And we were up there watching nighthawks or watching for nighthawks. And it's been a terrible migration season so far for us in the Concord area on the Merrimack River. It's been fantastic on the Connecticut River Valley. But on Monday night, on August 31st, the dam broke and we had more than 2,000 nighthawks come over. It was 2,202 nighthawks that were tallied. And there was a huge swarm of them that was flying all around over Concord. We were on top of a parking garage, so we had some height, could see out, and it just was spectacular to watch them all circling around. It could see 200 or 300 in one flock. It was really wonderful. And I had a great experience watching them and seeing them as they prepared. They probably were feeding over the river valley, and then getting some insects, feeding on insects. Nighthawks are related to whippoorwills. They're insect eaters, so they're feeding on insects. Oftentimes on flying ants in the fall. If there's a swarm of them, they'll feed on those. So I got to see that huge group and have that spectacular night. There will still be a few more nights when we will have some nighthawks moving through, but it may not be quite that number. So I am trying to check my feed on my phone because I'm not seeing me. So I'm hoping that you all are seeing me, but I'm not able to spot the live video. I wonder if something has changed. Let's see. All right. Oh, there we go. Maybe that's it. All right. I finally got it. Okay. Hi, folks. Hi, Florence. Jess, good morning. That's a good sign. Sounds like people can see me and people can hear me, so I really appreciate that. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to send it to Facebook now, make a comment on Facebook. Or if you want to email us, you can email birds, etc. at nhaudubon.org. That's BIRDSETC at nhaudubon.org. And there are volunteer naturalists that will help answer questions, bird ID, or other types of questions that you might have, behavior and things like that. Hi, Marty. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Nice to know that some folks are able to see and hear me. Uh, I mentioned the spectacular nighthawk migration that we just had, and I hope some of you may look up in the evenings. But again, around 5:30 to 7:30, watch for a bird, long pointed wings and white wing patches, sort of about halfway out the end of the wings, and see if maybe you can catch the tail end of their migration as they're headed to South America. Hi, Donna. Last week when we did the Q&A, there were a couple of questions that came up about barred owls, which I had to do a little research on. So I wanted to convey some of that information to you. One of the questions that was asked was, what size is a barred owl territory? So I did a little bit of looking, and there's a wide variety of studies, or wide variety of territory sizes in different studies, but the average seems to be around 400 to 600 acres. And so if you want to put up a nest box for barred owls, they recommend about half a mile apart. However, there are some areas where territories were small, just 94 acres. Other areas where there were 1,600 acres. So there can be a lot of variety depending on the habitat type and I'm sure what the food supply is. So that's the 400 to 600 acres is just a rough guideline, and it may be that if you have a couple of territories that are and you're near a territory border, you might be able to have a couple of nest boxes that are closer than that half mile. Hi Julie and hi Jane. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put a comment on the Facebook Live. Or you can send us a message as well. But I can see the Facebook Live comments. Yay! If any of you have been watching me for a while, you know that technical issues are always cropping up. So we've got the barred owl territories. The other question that came up was about bird houses, and I wanted to mention a resource that I use all the time. It's called Woodworking for Wildlife, and I found my copy. You can see the title there. And it's a fantastic book because it has plans for a whole array of birdhouses for a lot of different species. So one of the things to keep in mind if you want to do birdhouses is that different bird species have different specifications, different house sizes, different hole sizes, different placement. Some like them low, some like them high, some like them out in fields, some in the woods. So you really need to know what birds that you might be wanting to put a house out for in order to get the appropriate dimensions, size, and placement of the box. So this Woodworking for Wildlife book has plans and all that information for a real wide variety of species. And this was put out by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, so it covers a lot of the birds, and in fact most all the birds that we have in New Hampshire that would use cavities. So not all birds use cavities. Sometimes, as you know, they just put their nests in trees and branches and things like that. So there's just a subset of species that uses cavities. Holes in trees would have been their original type of cavity, but they'll use man-made nest boxes. So I'll share a little bit of the information that they had in here about barred owls to give you an idea of what type of information you want to get when you're building and putting up a birdhouse. Oh, and hi to lots of other people, Gail, Lisa, Jane, Amanda, Valerie, thank you, great. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my phone to look at comments. Oh my gosh, I've got a comment on my screen. Oh, that hasn't happened in weeks. Well, Jess, I just got a comment from Jess. I think that came in about 5 minutes ago on my phone, but wow, isn't that interesting? Okay, so back to birdhouses. Sorry about that. Technology problems, I love it when they work themselves out. So the information that the book has about barred owls is that the box should be cleaned out or placed in January. The barred owls are early nesters, so you want to have it in place when they may start nesting, which could be February or March, depending on what the weather conditions and food conditions are like in any given year. The box should be located 12 to 15 feet high in a mature upland hardwood or lowland hardwood area, preferably within 200 feet of water. Well, not all of us are going to be within 200 feet of water. That's just a preference. But the 12 to 15 feet high gives you an idea. You're going to need a ladder to put a box up that high. And the entrance hole shouldn't be obscured by leaves. The owls want a clear pathway right into the box, a clear flight path. And I mentioned the boxes should be spaced about half-mile apart. Uh, so that is some of the basic information. Predation is always an issue to consider when you're putting out nest boxes. For barred owls, they recommend putting a 2-foot high sheet of aluminum around the trunk of the tree to keep raccoons from predating the nest box. And you can put the nest box on a pole as well. Now, birds like bluebirds and tree swallows that you oftentimes will put the houses on poles so you can put a predator guard on the pole and keep something like a squirrel or a raccoon or snake from getting up into the box. In New Hampshire, we don't have as much problem with snake predation, but squirrels like red squirrels, gray squirrels, and raccoons will all predate boxes. And once they've learned that they've gotten food at a box, they'll come back again and again. So predator guards are really valuable and important to put on a box. And also, if you're putting out boxes, you have to watch out for competition with non-native species. This is a huge problem for me in the community gardens where I have a plot and I've put up houses for tree swallows, but the house sparrows, which are non-native, are using the same boxes. They're driving the tree swallows out. They will even kill the tree swallows. In fact, it killed the female tree swallow last year in my box. So I have had to cover over the boxes till I can figure out how to keep house sparrows from them. European starlings is another species that will use boxes and it's a non-native species and will usurp our native species. They cannot get into holes that are 1.5 inches in diameter or less. So if you're putting out houses for tree swallows, bluebirds, that's about the size hole that you should have, and that will keep the starlings out. Hi to Mary and Chelsea and Gareth and Kathy. If anybody has a question, please send it on in, post a comment, or message us on Facebook, or you can send an email to New Hampshire Audubon, birds, etc. at nhaudubon.org. All right, so I think we've wrapped up the questions that we had last week that I had to do some research on. If you have any other questions about bird houses, don't hesitate to send them along. I'm hoping to get more bird houses up in my yard. And there are also shelves that you can put up for birds. Phoebes and robins will both use shelves, nesting shelves. So in fact, in my garden, I had a trellis set up and I had a nesting shelf on it for robin. Actually, the shelf was designed for barn swallows, but the robin used it and found it to be great. And I had to take the trellis down, and the robin came and sat on the pole where the trellis had been, clearly looking for the nesting shelf. So I had to put the nesting shelf back up on the pole, and it actually used it again. I'll be fascinated to see if it used it next year because it no longer has that overhanging protection from the trellis. So there's a number of different things you can do to create uh, places where birds can nest in your yard, in your garden. There are also, um, dense bushes and shrubs are another type of place that birds that don't use cavities or shelves like to put their nests. So don't worry about having a really neat yard. If you have a messy corner where the shrubs are all dense and there's a thicket in there, that can be a great place for birds to nest. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Patricia. And hi, Rain. If you have any questions, send them along. Nice to see you all. Um, Also, I wanted to mention this week is the start of hawk migration monitoring. There will be a watcher on top of Pack Monadnock. This is a New Hampshire Audubon and Harris Center partnership. And There will be a watcher that will be counting hawks this year. This is at Miller State Park, Pack Monadnock, in Peterborough, New Hampshire, and there are restrictions for getting into the park. So you do need to go to the park website to find out what the details are about access to the park itself. But there'll be a watcher counting raptors, and they've just started. And this is the time when raptor migration is going on. Now, hawk migration it takes place over an extended period of time, all the way into November, with different species going at different times. So, for example, something like red-tailed hawk, which we have year-round resident red-tailed hawks, but we also have migrants that come through, but they're late migrants. They're coming through in November. The earlier migrants are things like sharp-shinned hawks, Cooper's hawks, broad-winged hawks, American kestrels. Now, the most spectacular species to watch in migration is the broad-winged hawk. I mentioned a little earlier that we had this spectacular nighthawk migration night with over 2,000 nighthawks on Monday. Broad-winged hawks can do the same thing. They can have conditions that are just right when lots of raptors, lots of broadwings will migrate, and you can get phenomenal counts. There are some places that get 10,000 broadwings in a day. We don't quite reach that tally, but you could get 1,000 broadwings in a day when the conditions are just right. And the most likely time for that to take place is the second to third week in September. So if you are interested in looking for hawks and looking for migrant hawks, you want to go to a place where you've got some height and a view to the north, but if you can, a view, I mean, a 360-degree view, or at least a 180-degree view from sort of the east all the way around through the north to the west. And then watch for hawks coming through. Sometimes hawks are really high, sometimes they're very low. But one of the things that hawks like to do is take advantage of thermals. And these are rising columns of warm air. And they oftentimes form over fields, but they form usually on sunny days. So when we've got a sunny day with maybe a bit of a breeze from the north, northwest, northeast, hawks like a tailwind, they will circle up and rise on this thermal, this column of air. They get to the top and then they glide their way to the south until they get to the next thermal. And sometimes you can get hundreds of hawks in one thermal, and that's when you get the big counts. And that's definitely something that broad-winged hawks are known for doing. But other days, when thermals aren't forming, birds may be lower. They may be coming by in singles and ones and twos. But it's a great time to go out and watch and look for them. And strong south winds are not the best conditions for them because the hawks tend not to fly into a headwind. So if you're going to pick a day to go out, look for one of those days where you don't have south winds. Maybe you've got, again, a little bit of a north wind if you can, because that gives them a tailwind. And if you got some sun for some thermals, it's a good chance for it. And September is one of the busiest months for hawk migration. So that's a great time to go out. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Cynthia. And hi, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon, here to answer any questions, share some nature highlights. If you've got any stories to share, please send them along, and don't hesitate to make a comment. Happy to answer questions as well. Um, so back to raptor migration. In September, one of the busiest months, October, you still have raptors coming through. That's when you start to get into some of the larger raptors moving. I mentioned red-tailed hawks are quite late, but turkey vultures are also late. They're more of an October migrant. So that's a species you could see in actually at this point pretty good numbers. Turkey vultures never used to be very common in the state. They've extended their range northward. They're all the way up into the northern part of the state. And as a result, in migration, we're seeing more and more of them. So you can see them drifting through. Eagles and osprey will start to come through. Eagles even later than osprey. Um, Osprey would be more like the end of September, early October. So look for some place that's got a great view. You'll want binoculars, a scope if you can, if you have one. That's a good thing to bring out. Be someplace you can set up and watch. So it's that time of year. If we've got some big flights, I'll let you know about them. The other species that is migrating right now that we see when we're watching for common nighthawks are chimney swifts. And on the night that we had over 2,000 nighthawks on Monday, there were about 350 chimney swifts all swirling around a chimney where they're roosting in the evening. And it's quite a spectacular sight when you see that happen. And take a look at YouTube in the next couple days because I did take a video of flock of swirling flock of chimney swifts coming down into a chimney to roost for the evening. Now, in the summertime, you'll just have a single pair in a chimney. They nest in chimneys. That's how they get their name, chimney swift. And they will nest in the chimney, and then the young will fledge. But in the fall, they will gather and roost often communally in one chimney or maybe a couple of chimneys in Concord. So you can watch for that. They go into roost at around 7:30 to 7:45, maybe 7:20. I think that's when I started seeing them going in, was 7:20. Um, and they'll go in and they'll swirl around and then they'll start dropping into the chimney and then they'll swirl again and drop into the chimney. And it really is a lot of fun. So keep your eye out for that. Chimney swifts are insect eaters and they will be leaving quite soon if they haven't left already. But we've got a little bit of warm night tonight, so maybe there'll be some still around. All right. Hi, Cynthia. Hi, Marilyn. Let's see. Cynthia's got a question. Are they opportunistic migrators? Okay, I think we're talking about hawks. And hawks, some of the hawks must migrate. There's not enough of a food supply here in the wintertime. So they they've got the genes and the genetic makeup that says it's time to go south. So broadwing hawks are one of those. American kestrels, we might have one or two that stays around, but they migrate. Sharp-shinned hawks, Coopers, again, some will stay around, some will migrate, but most all the sharp-shinned hawks take off. Every once in a while, there's one left. Um, and then there are other raptors that may migrate some years, but not others. I would put red tails in that category. Turkey vultures are ones that must migrate. There's just not enough food around for them in the wintertime. It's too cold. But then in terms of when they actually go, they'll take advantage of when the conditions are right. So they don't have to migrate each day. They wait until the conditions are right and then they'll take off and go a long distance. Now, something like broad-winged hawks go all the way down to South America. Others don't go anywhere near as far. Red tails won't go anywhere near as far. Sharpshins are probably somewhere in the middle. I'll do a little bit of looking for what the farthest winter range or wintering is for some of the hawks. I'm making a note of that wintering range for hawks for the different hawk species. And I'll get back to you on how far south some of them may go. I know the broadwings go to South America, but I'm not sure how far south some of the other migrants go. Many of them go just to southern US, but there may be some of them that go even farther beyond that. Okay, so Cynthia, yeah, where did they migrate to? And we'll get some more information on that for next time. Optimistic, hi, Marilyn, Jess. Do turkey vultures tend to be along rivers? Spotted two birds I wasn't close enough to fully identify, but it does look similar to what I saw. They certainly could be around rivers. Turkey vultures could be just about anywhere in the state, and along rivers is a possibility. The other bird that might be along rivers that could be confused with the turkey vulture is the immature bald eagle, because they tend to be all dark, so they look similar. Turkey vultures tend to do a lot more circling, and then they hold their wings in a dihedral angle. Let's see if I can do this. So it's kind of like their wings are up like this instead of flat. Well, that didn't show very well. So more up like this instead of, oh, I can't do the flat part. Let's see if I can use a piece of paper for it. So, no, that's not gonna work. I'll see if I can get a prop next time. But their wings are angled up a little bit. So it's a little bit of a dihedral angle for the turkey vulture, and the bald eagles are sort of straight across like a board. And then the turkey vultures do a little more rocking motion when they fly, and they do a lot more circling and circling up and moving around. The bald eagles, they will do some circling, but then they tend to glide and go off in a particular direction. So either one of those, bald eagles, I would definitely expect to be near water, pond, lake, river. They tend to hang around water. They'll go after fish, they'll go after ducks, and they'll also try and steal fish from ospreys. And ospreys would be along rivers too. They tend to have a little bit more white on them, whereas the immature bald eagles and the turkey vultures look all dark. Hi, Karen. Hi, Charlotte. Oh, Jess, if it definitely had red on their heads, it was a turkey vulture for sure. The adult turkey vultures have red heads. It's their skin. Their heads do not have feathers. That's thought to be an evolutionary bonus or benefit for them when they're feeding on dead things. Helps prevent parasites. Um, but the adults have red heads, and then the immatures that were hatched this year, they'll be the same size as the adults, but their head won't be red yet. It's an all dark head. Very easy to confuse with the black vulture. And the black vulture is rare in New Hampshire. We're getting a few more sightings these days than we ever used to, so they may be extending their range northward. But the two species are difficult to tell apart. But if you see a red head, it's definitely a turkey vulture. The black vultures tend to have a shorter tail. If you get them in the right light, they have white on the tips of their wings. But if you get them in the wrong light, they look all black. And black vultures don't have quite as much of a dihedral. But in general, the places where we get reports of black vultures are along the southern Connecticut River Valley, in the Nashua and the Exeter area. Those are the few places we've had the most reports. Hi, Diane. Nice to see you there. One other thing I wanted to mention is that New Hampshire Audubon will be working next fall and the fall after on putting nano tags on monarch butterflies. This is a new technology that's absolutely amazing. They're these very lightweight transmitters. You can put them on butterflies. When they fly by a Motus tower, that tower will pick up the transmitter's signal, and so you can follow a butterfly or a bird or other creature as it migrates south. And one of the things that we're looking for are tips on where there are good concentrations of monarchs in the Concord area and in the seacoast area. This year is not a great monarch year. Last year we had a spectacular one, and there were lots of monarchs around. This year there aren't as many. But if you see large concentrations and could let us know, you can message us on Facebook. You can send an email to birds@nhaudubon.org, and just let us know if you see a concentration of them. We're scouting this year for places where we can find the monarchs next fall, so we won't have to take the time to scout. So this is a very exciting project. You'll be hearing more about it as we get into it. But if you see any concentrations of migrants, of monarchs, I'm sorry, concentrations of monarchs, whether they're migrants or not, the butterflies, please let New Hampshire Audubon know. That'd be great. All right. Hi, Jess. Thanks for the answer. Hi, Vicki. Hi, Heidi. All right. Any other questions? Let's see. I've been talking all about migrants. One of the ones I've left out is dragonflies. And believe it or not, dragonflies migrate. Green darners migrate. They're one of the largest dragonflies, and they go south. There's not a lot that's known about the green darner migration, but I'll do a little research. I read something really interesting about them, but I've forgotten the details. So for next time, I'll report back um, on some information that we've gotten. Report back. I'm making a little note. If I don't make a note, I forget. So I'm going to be looking up the wintering range of different hawk species and some of those interesting details on the green darner migration. Um, if you have been out and about, you and have visited some community gardens at all, if they have sunflowers, and you can see I've got some above my head, those are from my garden, and the birds are tremendously attracted to sunflower plants. So I'm going to try growing a bunch of them in my yard next year. But just wanted to mention it now for you all to think about. Some sunflowers get to be incredibly tall. Mine self-seed, and when they come up, they've reverted back to whatever their tall ancestor is. Even though I planted a named variety, when they self-seed, they don't breed true to that variety. And I have some sunflowers way over my head, and the goldfinch go to them practically before the flower is even dead. They start feeding on the sunflower seeds. So it's a bird attractant that I notice at this time of year. But you've got to think about it when you notice it now and plan for it for next year. Cynthia asks, didn't think dragonflies live long enough to migrate. Yes, it's fascinating. So we'll come back to that. Hi, Patsy. All right, we're going to wrap up in a minute or two here. If you have any last minute questions, just post them. Or as I mentioned, you can message us on Facebook, or you can send an email to birds, etc., BIRDSETC at NHAudubon.org. I'm Becky with New Hampshire Audubon and happy to answer any questions. For those regular watchers, there will not be a Facebook Live next week, but we'll return in 2 weeks. Next week is a holiday week, so we'll be back in a couple of weeks. All right. Any last minute questions? Let's see. Was there anything else I wanted to mention right off the bat? Oh, we didn't get a chance to talk about pelagic birds. I was going to do that. Well, we'll do that in another couple of weeks. But if you have a chance to get out on a whale watch, this is a great time to watch for the birds that spend nearly all their life at sea. These are called pelagic birds. They're things like Wilson's storm petrels and shearwaters, and we'll try and talk more about them next time around. But the month of September is a great time to get out on a whale watch and check for birds. So, all right. I really appreciate everybody watching and joining me. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, watch for migrating hawks, the last of the nighthawks, chimney swifts swirling around chimneys, monarchs. Let us know if you see any concentrations, and watch for dragonflies. And we will be following more of what's happening with all of that migration and songbird migration, which is my favorite. And September's a great month for that. So we'll be talking about more of it back later. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. It's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon, and as always, we really appreciate your support. We're an independent state Audubon society. We're not affiliated with National Audubon. We're not a state-supported organization. We're a membership-based nonprofit organization. We really appreciate your contribution. You can go to our website, nhaudubon.org, and support us there. Thanks all very much. Have a great day.